All right, John Mark, let's shift gears here for
Let's
a
do it.
second. You've made so many records. I should have counted today. How many records have you made?
I think it would be like 8 official records.
Yes.
But then there have been a lot of like singles and EPs and things where I did alternate versions and stuff. So, I mean, there's probably a good 10 or 15 projects available. But I want to say 8 that'd be considered official, album releases.
And then how many years have you been doing this?
I started in probably 2001, 2002.
So you're over 20 years in now.
Yeah, over 20 years in. And my wife and I left our jobs in 2006. And we left our jobs and we were working for a church and they were real supportive and they took up an offering for us one Sunday. They took up a $4,000 offering.
Yeah.
So sweet. So sweet. And I told my wife, if we put that in the bank, if we ever have to touch that to pay a bill or whatever, like I'm going to quit. I'm going to go get a quote real job.
Right.
And we never did. It got close. It got really, really close. But man,
and then you're sitting there looking at it.
Yeah.
You're like, babe, is this it?
I know exactly.
Is this it?
It's
Don't pay
up.
that bill.
Don't pay that.
Don't pay that bill.
Give me a minute.
Let
me make some calls.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the reason I wanted to set those 2 questions up like that is, what are 3 things that you'd want to say to maybe young creators?
Yeah.
And maybe that's musicians or maybe that's not, right?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of overlap in that creative space.
Yep.
So, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Yeah. I think what I wish I'd have had more confidence early on.
Okay.
I think I made a lot of decisions based out of maybe a little bit of fear.
Okay.
And I also wish that I had known that it was going to be, it went by so fast. It's sort of funny. It was very short, but actually, if I'd have played the long game, I would have got where I needed to go faster. It was always like, you got to do this thing. You got to do this thing. And I always felt like I need to get my music out because, especially, it's changed so much, but because everything is out there, you're not like going to do anything that shocks or surprises anybody today. Because everything is happening all the time. But I remember thinking, I'm doing the new thing. If I don't get it out in the next few months, someone else is going to beat me to the punch. And I can't say...
That's a hard thought, isn't it?
Yeah. And I feel like I rushed through some things and I made some bad choices. For instance, Economy album is a great album. It's a really great album, but it's like 2 tracks away from being the album it should have been. And I was working with the best team. I was like, I got to get it out because I got to do the tour. Everyone's got to know that I did. And it's like, none of that matters. None of that matters at all. Like what really matters is being able to make a long-term connection with another human being, right? That's really what matters. I think that's what I would say to creators today, whether it's like you're creating on TikTok or you're composing music. The one constant factor that doesn't change is long-term success depends on your ability to make a heart connection with another person.
And that is, by definition, the long game.
It is. The long game.
Yeah.
And so, like, I see people on TikTok blowing up, and it's great. But I'm like, are you, like, you're piling up these numbers, but are you really making a connection with a person? Are they going to remember you in 5 years? And if so, why? Why are they going to remember you? And so, like, are you just doing this just to sell, I don't know, whatever it is you sell, like, and I'm not even saying that's a bad thing, but it's one of my issues with social media is like you build up this big platform, but are you really making a deep connection with other people? If you make a deep connection with other people, the platforms can go up and down. They can change. They can move from one to the next. But like, especially in the streaming world, it's like I need people to want to listen to my song year after year after year. That's the only way you can make a living. And so why is someone going to listen to your song year after year? It's not because you got featured on a trending sound.
Yeah, that's so temporary, right?
So temporary. And it's it wouldn't...
we'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't suck for me.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is you'd play the long game.
Play the long game.
You'd make heart connections.
Make heart connections.
But say more about making heart connections rather than surface connections. Like, What does that mean for you, or who in the world do you think is making heart connections?
Yep. Oh man, I almost anyone I know who is super successful. I sat down a while ago with this person's probably the most successful person in my world.
Yeah.
Definitely one of them, right? And I asked him, I was like, "What? If you're going to give me any advice, what advice would you give me?" And he said that he said how you play matters, though how you perform matters. He's a performer, not a worship leader, but he's a performer. And he said, but what matters more than how well you play is your ability to let these people into your world. He's like, what are you going to say that's going to open the door and let people in? Because especially these days, there's so much music. Like, why are they going to listen to you? And I think that people listen to you in one sense because they see themselves in you. And that comes from vulnerability. And I think early on, and this is the other thing I tell myself early on, is that I was trying to be someone I couldn't actually be. I wanted to be like in perfect shape. I wanted to look like a rock star. I know that sounds really weird coming from a person who grew up playing worship music. You know, maybe, but we do kind of think that way sometimes.
Yeah.
We want to be successful. We want to be honored. We want, right? And so I think there was a point when I thought I need to be spectacular. But that actually worked against me because I don't think people want spectacular. They want to see themselves in you, and they see themselves in you when you let some light shine through the cracks. I'm not talking about being a train wreck. I know people who've done that too. And you get a lot of attention as a train wreck, but that you're not making a deep heart connection as a train wreck. But allowing some of the things about yourself that you don't love, incorporating that into what you do actually opens up the door because people aren't perfect. And when they see those imperfections in you, I think psychologically you'd call it your shadow. It's the part of yourself that you don't want to admit is part of you.
Yeah.
And when you allow a portion of that into your life, what do you call it? Incorporate, or there's a psychological word for it they like to use. But when you allow some of that into your story, all of a sudden people start paying attention to you because they see themselves in you. And they may not even be able to say, in fact, usually they won't. Usually they won't be able to say what it is about you that makes them want to pay attention to you or why they care about what you're saying. But I think subconsciously they hear a little bit of your weakness that resonates with their weakness, and they're like, if he's weak, then it's okay for me to be weak.
Yeah.
And I want to know more about you.
Well, the times that I've run into superheroes are the wrong word, but
They are.
you know, people. All I do is win. People who are just, or at least presenting as
Yeah.
that. Man, it's really hard to connect, isn't it? It's so strange.
Yeah.
And then you can get around someone else who's, I'll use the word earthy,
Yeah.
or you use the word vulnerable. There's something there, and you realize, oh yeah, it's so much more. I would even use the word hospitality. There's like a soul hospitality there.
Yeah.
I'm making some room for you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
By simply being who I really am.
Yeah. And I thought for the longest time, if I could be this idealized version of myself, then I would be successful. I assumed that the idealized version of myself was the most successful version of myself, and that's not true. It's really not true.
Play the long game.
Play the long game.
Vulnerability.
Make
a heart connection.
Make
with
a heart
people.
connection.
Anything else you would say to younger creators or people who are just starting? Because you've learned a lot of lessons along the way.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Say something about building a team, John Mark, because you have good people around you.
Yes. The people around you matter for more reasons than most people realize.
just riff on that for a minute.
Yes.
Because this is a big deal.
Someone said, I mentioned this earlier, but there's a saying that goes, no man is an island, right?
Yeah.
And you are in a lot of ways the reflection of the people that are around you. And when you are doing anything, you need other people. The best version, I'll say it this way, the best version of whatever you are doing is the version where you have a group of people who are bought into it. And I mean, so I need my band to give their best every night. I could pay professionals a lot of money to come and play well, but that's not the same as a group of people who are bought in. When people who are bought in, because, we're, like I said, we made conscious choices to not play the biggest venues that we could, or to not do the types of things that would put us on the biggest stages. So there's budget. Budget is always a thing. And so I need people who are better players than what I can pay them. And the only way that's going to happen is if they're fully bought into what I'm doing. Right? So obviously pay them as much as I can. I feel like it's fair. That's another conversation. But what I'm saying is that or I could spend all my money on the best players who aren't bought in, and you're getting way less for your money. It's like really, when you're doing anything with a team, you need people to want to be there.
Yeah, isn't that
so if they
interesting?
Want to be there, they need some sort of ownership.
Yeah. So if somebody has an A+ heart or A+ commitment, like let's say you had an A+ commitment, or an A+ teammate who was an A- or a B+ player, you take that
always
over the A+ player who's like
always.
a C- in terms of energy,
always,
or commitment, or like into it.
Yeah, because the thing is bigger than the sum of its parts, right? And you feel that energy, like you really do, when you walk out on the stage with a group of people who want to be there. You feel it, the crowd feels it, and you create an upward momentum. And like that, a lot of it, someone was asking me about this the other day. They're like, I remember you and I having this conversation years ago. I was like, what is the magic trick for keeping people bought in? Because you're working hard, people get mad, people get frustrated. You got to make decisions that someone's excited about, another person's mad about, and you just flip-flop, and then, and then if you appease everyone, you end up in this middle area where, so I'm not talking about like playing the middle ground and appeasing everybody.
Right.
But like we do little things like I take my band guys out. I say band guys. There's some, my wife is with us. It was such a dude thing for a long time, but we go out once a tour or once a week if it's a long tour. We'll go out and we'll find a restaurant we all want to eat at, and I'll buy dinner for everyone. And we have these rules. Shut your phone off. The first person to turn their phone on pays.
Right.
And guess what? It's me every night.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to pay.
That's right.
But that's the point.
Yeah.
I'm buying dinner, and everyone turns your phone off. First person to turn their phone on pays for dinner. Turn our phones off. It's like a ritual, right? Turn our phone off, and we have one question. We go around, and we all answer it. And we'll have new people, and we're always shocked at the answers, because you realize you're working with all these people. You don't know people as well as you think you know them.
No, it's amazing. You can ask the simplest question, and all of a sudden you've got a new doorway into people's lives.
Exactly. And it'll blow your mind. It's like, I never knew. I've left those sometimes feeling bad, like having these people who've been very close to me, like, I never knew you went through that. I had no idea.
Right.
And so it's like creating, if you're talking about a team, that'd be one thing I would have done early on, is create some rituals, create some opportunities, play moments for them to develop some ownership, so it's not all about me and me talking all the time, and me being the thing all the time.
I love that idea of ritual. This is something I didn't catch early on. What I do is very different than what you do. But one of the things that I've missed over the years, and I've only learned in the last 3 years, is, let's say we're making a record. There should be some moment that starts the making of the record. Like, make the moment that makes the start of making the record.
Yeah.
At the end, make the moment that finishes making the record. Call the room together. Acknowledge it. Let people talk. Let people have it. You know what I'm saying? Putting those markers in the ground is really, really a big deal, and it helps build on-ramps for people. You learn things you didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was completely not aware of that.
Yeah.
And I had to see someone else do some of this, and I'm like, I'm such an idiot. There was all those moments that were missed through years.
Yeah.
And it was just missed because I wasn't looking. Back to what we were talking about earlier. Deep magic. I was just working on surface magic.
Yeah.
There's all this deep magic, and it's not coming to the surface because
Yeah.
No one's pausing. We just keep pressing on.
Well, one thing I learned about doing a show from watching other people do a show that I think really is a good metaphor for this in everyday life is this idea of highlights, where people don't remember a whole thing. People remember little moments. And so I remember a friend telling me, he's like, you don't have to make your like show from beginning to end like mind blowing. He's like, you just need to be above average, and then you need to create moments that are mind blowing.
Right.
He's like, because no one can just be mind blowing from beginning to end, and that doesn't exist anyway. You remember these little distilled moments in time,
Right.
and so you obviously want to do a good job. But it's the same with people. Like we go on a tour, and we come home, and you have a handful of memories, moments. The same with your family. You live all this life, and you have these moments. So when you can curate those moments, you create shelves for people to hang meaning on, and when you develop meaning together, it creates a strong bond.
Well,
It makes a strong bond between humans, right? Between people.
yeah, and having you say that reminds me of something. This would probably be like 2005.
Yeah.
Eric and I, Amanda was there too. Some of our best friends, right?
Yeah.
We had gone to see U2 in Chicago. And I mostly don't remember the night, but I remember two things. Number one, I remember Kings of Leon opened, and it was the most, like the kick drum nearly shook my liver out. I remember that. We all remember that.
Yep.
And the second thing I remember is at one moment, a song is landing, and Bono says, he says something to the Edge, and I can't remember what he said, but basically what he was saying is, keep this going.
Yeah.
And then Bono stands out on the edge of the stage and he sings, great light will break out in this city. A great light will overtake us. And then he gets the whole room to start singing, great light will come to this city. Great light will overtake us. And I remember thinking, I know what you're doing. No one in this room knows what you're doing right now, but I know what you're doing right now. And he got the entire stadium to start shouting, great light will break out in this city.
Yeah.
And I was like, what just happened here? What the heck just happened here?
Yeah.
And we went home, and I remember it.
Yeah.
This has been over 20 years ago now.
Wow.
Almost 20 years ago now. But it's just to your point.
Yeah.
Moments.
Highlight is almost not the correct word because it's so much more than that, right?
No, but he was aware, but something was available in that moment in the room. He went there.
He's like, yeah.
He pulled it out. He acknowledged it. We all got to enter in it. And now, 19 years later, 18 years later, I still remember it. I still remember the lyrics.
Yeah. It's imprinted on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
Man. Let me shift gears again. I think it was last week. I was like perusing YouTube, and Conan, he was interviewing like the surviving members of Nirvana with Steve Albini.
Oh my gosh. I've heard about this. I haven't watched it yet.
It's insanely good. It's just like insanely good, right?
Yeah.
But in classic Steve Albini form, he's wearing his coveralls, which is his way of, I think, I've never heard him talk about this, but I think this is his way of saying music is work.
Yeah.
Like when he goes to the studio to begin tracking, he puts coveralls on. It's so strange in some ways.
Yep.
But I think what he's saying is music is work. But some of what we've been talking about is it's magic.
Yeah.
How does it feel to you? Like if you're writing a song, and I think I know how you're going to answer this, but we're getting at the same thing 100 ways here. Like when you're writing music, or if you're in the studio recording music, or if you're here in a few minutes tonight, you're going to play music.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've got the coveralls on? This is work, or does it feel like magic, or is it all the same?
It's work until it's not, and there's a magic in the work, and that's maybe a little bit different. There's a magic in the work in that I can settle my brain into it. I can go to work and I know what I have to do, and then there are those moments when, and it's always fun when you're not expecting it. You work all day and you show up and then you play that first note and you're like, oh, I forgot. I was just working. And then it goes from work to not work. It's like sitting in a room by yourself and like one of your favorite people just walks in and all of a sudden the room is a different room, right? And it's sort of like when you're writing a song and like you get a chord and you got a couple of chords, you got a lyric and you got a couple of lyrics, and you got a melody, and it's just normal, and then it clicks, and then it's not normal. Maybe it's like being in love, you know? It's like, it's normal. I have these relationships with my friends, but then I have this person that like, it's not the same. And I don't know. I know how to talk about it, but I don't really know exactly what it is that is so much more. It's like, it's the same, but it's not the same, right? And that's how I feel about music. It's like you have all these little pieces, strings on a guitar, right? Like voices, and by themselves, it's like nothing. And then when it all hits at the same time, it's like, it's something else.
I love that.
I live for it.
I love that. And you just do the work
Yeah.
until the other part happens.
You do the work, yeah. I think some of it is it's a combination of doing the work and then leaving a space for that other thing to happen. I think there needs to be an expectation. But you can find fun in the work too. We talk a lot about, I'm trying to remember who I have this conversation with. Jacob Early produced a lot of my recent music, and we talk about being a farmer versus being a cowboy. And
Say more about that.
Well, there are artists who are like farmers, and there are artists who are like cowboys. I can't remember where we got this from. Probably somebody famous. Probably Daniel Lenoir or something. But a cowboy goes from town to town, you know, makes a big stir, does something wild, and then leaves and does something else. Beck, classic cowboy. He's like, I'm gonna rap. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be weird. Then I'm gonna do a string album with my dad, who writes for the, you know, classic Hollywood symphonies. Like, then I'm gonna do a punk rock album. He's like, you don't know what you're gonna get, you know.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna do another kind of electronic album. It's largely in Spanish, and I'm gonna, and you just don't know. He's a cowboy, right? A farmer is like Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's kind of a cowboy too.
Yeah, he went electric.
Maybe that's not a good example.
Yeah.
But Johnny Cash, he's going to do relatively the same thing over and over. He's going to find the sweet spot, and he's going to get better and better and better. Every now and then he'll be a cowboy, but he's kind of a farmer, you know. So the difference between a cowboy and a farmer is the farmer finds that life in the everyday, just finding the sweet spot and making it better, and the cowboy's like, I'm going to shake stuff up. I'm going to roll into town and kick stuff over. And it's fun to be both types of artists. I feel like as I get older, though, the farmer is more and more attractive to me as a lifestyle.
Right.
So it's hard. When you're a cowboy, people want to shoot you.
Yeah, they do.
People are coming for you.
If you go back to a town you've already been to,
Oh, yeah.
hey, no, what are you going to do next, John Mark?
Oh, you're making friends and enemies, right?
Yeah, and,
Like, yeah,
and like the last time you came here, you jumped through 3 flaming hoops, and you fought 2 grizzly bears. What are you going to do this time?
Exactly.
You know?
You kill 4 grizzly bears.
Yeah. What is
like,
it? What is it
yeah.
today? What is it today? All right. Shift gears again.
Yeah.
What's the best part of touring?
The best part of touring is, man, it's like Japan. It's the people.
Like the people in the band?
It's
the people in the room?
It's the people in the band and the people in the room. It's the guys. I keep saying the guys, but my wife is with us too.
Yeah.
It's the people on the bus, in the van, on the airplane.
And both times in this little moment that we've been sharing together, both times that you've said it's the people, you've gotten emotional.
Yeah.
What's that about? Is that just a now moment?
I don't know. I think it is.
I mean, when we started this,
Yeah.
I just asked you what I thought
Yeah.
was a benign question about Japan. You said it was the people, and you got tears in your eyes.
I think as I get older, I think that musically, watching the response to the people has become more exciting. Like, I'm more excited to see what happens with them when I sing a lyric than how I feel when I sing the lyric. But I think I'm just, okay, let's get real theological here.
Let's do it.
Jesus when he was tempted in the wilderness. We talked about that earlier. If people didn't catch that,
Yeah.
make bread was the first temptation. Be a spectacle was the second temptation, right? Like jump down and let the angels catch you. And the final one was what was the final one? Oh, worship
Bow
me
down
and
to me.
I'll give you power, right? What's interesting, Jesus didn't do any of that stuff in the wilderness for his own well-being, but then he did all of it.
Makes
Right.
bread for the people.
Makes bread for the people. Jump down and see if I'll catch you. Well, he allows himself to be killed,
He gets taken down.
Exactly. It says, worship me and I'll give you, right? But he, but he doesn't. But he still, he has influence. I mean, if you're going to get wild, you think about how many years later the Roman Empire is calling themselves a Christian empire, right?
Right.
That Jesus does all the things that he won't do for the devil.
Or for himself.
But he'll do it.
John Mark, I think that's the deep magic, isn't it? Yeah. I think that's the deep magic.
He won't do it for himself because that's the devil.
Yeah.
But he'll do it.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
He'll do it for you. I had to say it out loud because it's a podcast. You
It's
wouldn't
okay.
have heard me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to say it one more time.
Do it. Say it again.
He won't do it for you. He won't do it for himself because that's the devil. But he will do it for you.
Amen.
That's the deep magic.
That's the deep magic. Well, hey, listen, we're not going to say it better than that. Man, that was a great podcast, Jam.
Woo!
Woo! I feel that. All right, everybody.
That was deep magic.
Peace.